And a tough turn in this story. The search for a missing teen in the Kentucky River has now turned into a recovery effort. The 16-year-old was swimming in the river at Fort Boonesboro State Park Tuesday when he went under and did not resurface.
WKYT was first on that scene yesterday as the search effort got underway, and that's where we find WKYT's Phil Pendleton today for our top story at 4. Phil, you've been out there all day. What can you tell us?
Well, there is still a very extensive search and rescue operation taking place here at Fort Boonesboro State Park. The parking lot is filled with crews from Madison, Clark, Fayette, Laurel, and other agencies from around the state, including Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, converging here, all looking for this 16-year-old who went under the water and did not resurface. The 16-year-old from Texas was swimming in the area of the Kentucky River near the old beach area when he struggled and then disappeared under the water. Now, again, police tell us that they do see this as more of a recovery operation than a search and rescue one. Crews began searching last night and then again around 8 o'clock this morning. We're looking for a 16-year-old boy. It's not clear who he was with, but there were witnesses who told police he was swimming, he started struggling, and then he went under. A lot of outside agencies were called in, including K-9 units along with others to search by land, air, and water.
Sure, everybody has training. Some may have more extensive training and have more technology than maybe the Madison County EMA has or the fire department. Can't speak for that.
Now, I did speak briefly with the boy's grandfather who drove down from Indiana, and he said that there were other relatives coming in from Texas. They say that they were not really sure how many he may have been swimming with or if any others were swimming with him at the time of this incident, but obviously there were others who did see it and who called for help. Live in Madison County, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
Phil, thank you so much. Certainly a difficult day out there. Police do say that swimming has been prohibited in the beach area since the state park opened in 1993.